AML, PML, it's basically cord A and
Cord A, yeah, ma'am.
cord.
Yeah, ma'am. Cord A looks thickened, ma'am.
What else is there? Actually, this is meant for something else.
Okay.
Anything else you noted in LV?
Ma'am, there is like a moderator band kind of thing in the LV.
Do you call it as moderator band? Where is moderator band?
That is in RV side. Here.
So it's a normal structure.
Is it from? Is it organized thrombus? Is it a organized thrombus? That layer at the apex.
Anybody?
Is it a
false tendon? False tendon.
It's a false tendon. LV?
Okay.
False tendon. They're linear fibrous or fibromuscular bands, and they contain fibrous tissue, myocardial fibers, elastic fibers, and sometimes blood vessels, and even sometimes conduction tissue. Okay, in the echo, they look like cord-like structures that traverse the LV cavity. Can you see there? They get attached from pelvic myocardium to the septum or to the papillary muscles. You can get attached to septum, free wall of left ventricle, or papillary muscles, but they do not get attached to the mitral valve. Is it clear? So they are very common, huh? You are not seeing in your echoes. No, they were reported in nearly 50% in autopsy studies, but current investigations like echo and MRI report up to 78%. Though there is no consensus on implication on heart disease, they seem to be associated with a lot of things like functional murmur, re-excitation, idiopathic VT. Sometimes it may be needles for thrombus formation or infected endocarditis. Sometimes it may be associated with repolarization abnormalities and some theory that genesis of Jayadeva. So these are all still theoretical, nothing is proven. Okay? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Not able to hear?
No, you are audible, ma'am.
Okay, okay. No, at least somebody should respond. Otherwise, okay, so these are false tendons. Should not be mistaken for a thrombus. These are all normal variants which you look for. See, what are the normal variants in the right atrium you look for?
Eustachian valve, ma'am.
Okay. Eustachian valve.
Network.
Where is the eustachian valve?
In the
IVC.
IVC
RA junction.
IVC to it get
RA.
near the fossa vallis, IAS.
This.
So in the fetal life, it directs the blood flow from the IVC to the LA. So that is why it is from IVC to near the fossa vallis. Then you can have the Bayesian where
Coronary sinus valve. Coronary sinus.
Chiari network. Okay. Next. Notice this. Anybody?
Former.
Can you explain what it is?
Prominent accommodation ridge.
So first we should what is this?
This is a T image, ma'am. Trying to show 4-chamber metaesophageal. showing LA appendage, pulmonary vein, and LV, RA and RV, showing a small LV cavity, but LA appendage is there. There is a four shot.
Concentrate on the appendage, LA appendage.
Yeah.
This is the left upper pulmonary vein joining there. In between is this?
Comodine ridge.
Comodine ridge, or what are the other names? Warfarin ridge.
Warfarin ridge.
Or anything else?
Q-tip sign.
Q-tip sinus. So this is the ridge between the left upper pulmonary vein. It's similar to that image. Ridge between the left atrial appendage and the left upper pulmonary vein. Why is it called warfarin or comodine ridge? In early days of transesophageal echo, it was occasionally mistaken for left atrial mass or thrombus, and they were giving anticoagulation. So any significance? Other than mistaking it for thrombus, any other thing? What does it contain?
Marshall.
It's present in around 60% of humans. It contains ligament of Marshall, autonomic nerve bundle, and small atrial sinoatrial artery. So this can be a potential source of arrhythmias, like atrial fibrillation. So this is, I think EP people will be more concerned about it because it may affect EP procedures negatively. Means it may be difficult during operation procedures. Let me interpret that. Okay. Okay. So this is again a normal variant. So there are, you should know what are all the normal variant in right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, and left atrium. So we move on to the abnormalities. Can anybody interpret this?
Hemopericardium, ma'am.
Huh?
The thrombus in the pericardium, hemopericardium.
Yeah. What may be the clinic? Okay. Usually you should give a clinical.
Hemopericardium is secondary to the trauma, ma'am.
When do you see this kind of? Have you seen?
Secondary to trauma or rupture, free wall rupture also.
Correct. Free wall rupture. The finding in free wall rupture, which occurs in 0.8 to 6.2% of patients and contributes to 10% of mortality. It usually occurs in large infarct at the junction of the infarct and the normal muscle. More common in the LV, especially in the anterior and lateral walls. So this can be classified into three types. Free wall rupture. Type 1 is acute, which follows thrombolysis within 24 hours. Second is type 2 subacute, the slow onset. Type 3 is late, which forms pseudoaneurysm, which may rupture later. So this, is there any relation to thrombolysis? This acute rupture?
Yes, ma'am.
Thrombolysis does not give protection. Delayed thrombolysis increase risk, and it does not give protection against free wall rupture.
Which trial showed that? Late. What are the trials of late thrombolysis? Late and
MRS.
Next two trials showed that late thrombolysis, is it useful or not?
Not useful. 12 to 24 hours. Not useful.
Yes. In ongoing pain, persistent ST elevation, it may be useful, but there is a small increased risk of free wall rupture.
Okay.
What is this? These are you would have seen in the ICUs. This is again you can see the heart is moving or not? Is it contracting or not? Heart is not contracting. You can see some blood clots inside the pericardium. Just moving with ventilator or something. It's moving. There is no effective contraction. So this is what is called type 1 acute form. It is blowout. The sudden cardiac arrest, severe hypertension, electromechanical dissociation. due to cardiac tamponade and always fatal. We all know it is one of the cause for sudden cardiac arrest in the ICU. So this is what happens: acute tear, sudden profound shock, pulseless electrical activity, and you can't do anything. So the type 2 is subacute form. Here there is no cardiac arrest. There is a ooze. So there will be collection, moderate to severe peripheral effusion, and hypertension of varied severity. They may have sinus bradycardia earlier, sometimes without any P waves. Thanks. You see this? Just to make it little interesting. This patient had a Androal MI. Second day had some chest pain, hypertension. If you proceed to Gopi, and you could see the rupture. It was close to the happening. So what will be the present? We see echo findings. The pericardial effusion should be more than 5 mm. There is a layered high acoustic echoes which you saw in the first echo. It's due to blood clot. It's highly sensitive. See here, it's a layered high acoustic echoes within the pericardium. And increasing size of the pericardial effusion and the thrombus increases the specificity. So usually localization of rupture is difficult, maybe possible in only 40%. Contrast echo we have. What is the role of needle pericardial synthesis in these situations? Is it recommended or not? Bedside pericardial synthesis.
It's not recommended, ma'am, because it increases the bleeding further and does not cause any won't to increase the mortality.
Yeah, this is a common question where pericardiocenters is generally contraindicated. One of that is acute MI rupture, generally contraindicated because once you remove the fluid, the pericardial decompression occurs and there will be restoration of blood pressure for a while. So this can aggravate the myocardial rupture. There is a potential risk. But if surgical management is not immediately available, or patient is too unstable, you can remove a small amount to maintain the BP at 90 as a bridge to emergency surgery. The same thing was done in the previous patient. Some pericardial fluid was removed, and then we do it. So, in some other situations where this generally pericardial synthesis is contraindicated, can you mention some? Any other conditions where
Type A aortic dissection.
Type A aortic dissection, then anything else? Trauma. Yes, I still remember a few years back, patient came with some history of trauma and there's pericardial effusion. Surgeons forced us to do a pericardial aspiration. We did, and patient died within 1 hour. So trauma and post-operative loculated effusions. These are all hemopericardial. So it's better than open the pericardium and remove the seed wherever the rupture is there. Okay. So these are other relative contraindications like uncorrected coagulopathy or patient on anticoagulation therapy with INR with thrombocytopenia. So can anybody take this?
Ma'am, parasternal short axis view showing the ventricular septal rupture has
aneurysm, ma'am.
No, aneurysm it is.
Can you see there? It's moving in and out.
sorry,
It's
it's
the other side.
pseudoaneurysm.
See, in
LV
VSC,
is
what
on other
happens?
side.
Move from LV to
Pseudoaneurysm into pseudoaneurysm with narrow neck.
again, others also try. See, there is a small rupture here, and there is a pseudoaneurysm, and blood is moving in and out.
Flow in and out.
Yes. The site of death. This is not a classical pseudoaneurysm. So this is the type
There
3.
is a hello. Effusion is also there, ma'am.
This is pseudoaneurysm. You can see some pericardial effusion.
So it's a aneurysm is also leaking in a pericardial cavity.
Yeah. See, it is contained by the pericardium. Usually, this is a type 3 pseudoaneurysm, type 3 rupture causing pseudoaneurysm. Here, the tear occurs subacutely and spontaneously sealed and contained by the thrombus and adherent pericardium. In this, no myocardial tissue will be there. There will be sharp discontinuity of endocardial border with the LV cavity. This.
Ma'am? Hello?
Yes? Am I audible?
Ma'am, good morning. Good morning, ma'am. Dimpo here, ma'am.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
Dimpo?
that pseudoaneurysm, actually, if we, I mean, we have a, the containment is at the site of the orifice, or containment is from spreading further into the pericardial cavity, ma'am, because we are able to see the flow, no?
Spreading, no?
Spreading, no, ma'am. It's not like, no, because they say that the rent is actually contained by the thrombus or the adherent pericardial tissue antarala, ma'am, but we are able to see the flow to and fro so freely.
This region, this is the rupture site, and here it is contained.
Okay, so it is contained from spreading.
It's, yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
But the flow will not see. If there is a like the other one, if it is continuously flowing into the pericardium, then they will have tamponade. Here it will be, as you said, it will be contained into the other parts of the pericardial cavity. Then it just goes in, it is contained, and then it comes back.
Yes, ma'am. So the rent is not closed by the thrombus.
No, rent is not closed.
Okay, okay.
But I'll show you something. Yeah, so this is what is the post-pervasive pseudoaneurysm with the narrow neck. Here is the pericardial meningitis. So the common question is difference between pseudoaneurysm and true aneurysm. So most often you see the pseudoaneurysms in the infraposterior or infralateral region, sometimes basal septum regions also. So usually they are circular or globular. Here one point is you should remember is neck diameter will be less than 0.5. The ratio of the neck diameter to the angular diameter will be less than 0.5. And as you know, it is prone for rupture. So we are all familiar with this picture. Very commonly asked question: the difference between true aneurysm and pseudoaneurysm. Here you can see this is the pseudoaneurysm. There is a rupture, and it is contained by the thrombus and the pericardium. There is no muscle tissue here, and the neck is narrow. It is less than 0.5% of the aneurysm diameter, and they are prone for rupture. Whereas true aneurysm, it has a wide base, wide neck, walls have myocardial tissue, and generally they don't rupture. So these things you should be aware. See this?
Maybe apical rupture contained by thrombus.
Anterior MI, patient had rupture. You can see some pericardial collection, and then it got sealed off with the thrombus. This patient underwent surgery. eruptive cell actually. Correct. Sealed off thrombus. Okay, what is this?
Thrombus.
Thrombus?
LV dissection.
Organized
LV dissection
thrombus.
means
Dissection.
Any
Ma'am,
other?
papillary muscle rupture.
Capillary rupture. There is capillary rupture here. To concentrate on the effect.
Myocardial hematoma.
Intramyocardial hematoma.
I'll show you some more. So this is color. You can't go into that. So what are the differential diagnosis at this stage? One you said is, what did you say first? Papillary muscle, no way. I'll show you. So effects.
organized thrombus.
Yeah, one differential diagnosis will be thrombus. Other will be pseudoaneurysm. So if it is pseudoaneurysm, there should be flow into that. If it is clot, you will not see a clear cut. This is the clear cut endocardial border. So this is an intramyocardial hematoma. So rare complication called intro or MI caused by hemorrhagic dissection through the myocardium. It is dissection in the myocardium itself. So most commonly seen in androolemi in the apical region. It's often misdiagnosed as clot or pseudoaneurysm. Natural history is it may spontaneously resolve with good clinical. So this is what I am saying. Echo-lucent space within the apex. And you can see the inner myocardial layer separating the hematoma from the LV cavity. You won't see such clear-cut layer in clot. You can see the undulating movement of that. There is no communication with the cavity. That rules out pseudoaneurysm. See this, as we discussed, spontaneous resolution can occur, and this after 2 months it is almost completely resolved to severe hypokinesis or akinesis in the epic. Okay, it's a rare complication.
Ma'am, these patients are managed conservatively, ma'am.
They usually manage conservatively.
And any change in anticoagulation or anything? Or
I don't think you need to give anticoagulation.
no. The routine anticoagulation can be given, no?
Routine, once you see, I don't think you give any indication in any definite
Or
indication.
should we stop? Should we stop or anything like that? No.
Yeah, we need to stop, I think.
We need to stop. Okay.
Ma'am, antiplatelets can be given, ma'am.
Huh?
Antiplatelets, because there is a hematoma, so it may increase it, no, ma'am. Antiplatelets.
Antiplatelets will have to give.
Okay.
Yeah, more information I will get back. What is this?
Flax
Ventricular.
view.
VSR, ventricular septal rupture.
Which part? Which is likely to be the MI here?
Likely to
You
be
explain.
anterior wall MI.
We can see multiple, no? 1, 2,
Multiple,
3.
yeah.
In the near the apical region, almost mid and apical. So which wall MI is likely to be? Anterior?
Anterior wall MI.
It's likely to be anterior. This one?
This is basal
This is short axis view at the
level of papillary muscle.
Basal level.
basal level, and you can see the VSR at the basal level. So likely to be, you can see some
Inferior.
hypokinesia in this region. So inferior level. So incidence Again, it's around 0.2 in the post-thrombolytic era. Pre-thrombolytic era it is 2%. So thrombolysis has decreased the incidence here, unlike the pre-wall rupture. So invariably you hear a loud pansystolic murmur in the lower external border. So whenever you hear a loud systolic murmur, it has to be VSR because most often the MR murmurs are either soft or not audible. So always look for a systolic murmur. Yesterday one of our students was telling, poor student. So he said patient had some VSR on the echo and the student missed to pick up the murmur. So you cannot miss this murmur. It will be loud and systolic murmur, sometimes even in the thrill. So it can occur any point from base to apex, equal frequency in anterior and inferior. Anterior MI occurs in the distal 1/3 of the septum, often as a direct force, whereas in inferior MI, it's in the basal inferior septum, low complex, maybe serpiginous, multiple, and we will need non-conventional imaging planes. We will miss it in usual imaging planes. So like this serpiginous force. Okay, this keeps going though I put it in. Then you concentrate on this now first. Are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am.
Papillary muscle is missing, ma'am. Anterolateral papillary muscle is missing
Very good.
in the parasternal short axis view. So probably yes.
Okay. So all of you can see this area there is no papillary muscle at all. You can see the one papillary muscle here. No? What is this showing?
Parasternal long axis view showing freely mobile
Vegetation.
papillary muscle detached from the LV wall, prolapsing into the LA.
Yeah, with a flail leaflet.
Yes, flail.
I think it's more clear. You can see here. This was a patient with inflow lateral MI developed acute LVF on day 3. So which leaflet is more affected here? Which papillary muscle is more prone to rupture?
Posterior medial.
Posterior is
Here it is anterolateral. So which leaflet will be affected? It can affect both leaflets, no?
Both leaflets. Yes, ma'am. Both.
So the chordae get attached from each papillary muscle to both the leaflets. So both leaflets can be involved. But here, which is the most affected leaflet? So here it is. No? You can decide.
AML.
Anterior seems to be more
AML is more affected.
The jet, here the anterior leaflet looks plain. The tall papillary muscle attached to that. Everybody is able to see? Is it running properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the jet, eccentric jet going posterolaterally. So the most affected leaflet is anterior. So posteromedial papillary muscle is more common 6 to 12 times because of the single blood supply. What is the blood supply of papillary muscles?
Anterolateral is
mainly from RCA. Anterior has dual supply both from LAD and it can get a. I mean, it can be from.
Circumference. It usually comes from posterior is coming from PDA, right?
Yes, PDA.
Yeah. Anterior is dual blood supply. So it can be partial or complete. Here it is complete. If it is partial, they may have less severe symptoms. If it is complete, it is catastrophic. They present with acute pulmonary edema, cardiogenic shock, and highly fatal. They die within 24 hours. That's what happened to this patient. He died within hours. So incidence is about 1%, occurs 2 to 7 days after the MI. Even small areas of ischemia can cause because of the preserved LV function. There is stress on the patellar muscle and that can rupture. It can occur in small areas of infarction. So what will the echo picture?
Rupture will be different from muscle dysfunction, no?
Yes,
Papillary muscle.
dysfunction is different. Dysfunction occurs during ischemia. Can occur during ischemia. You can get MR during anginal pain. They can get ischemia, and they can have MR, which may disappear when the angina comes down. So that's a transient phenomenon. So here, there can be prolapse and more often flail of one or both leaflets. And you can see the mobile mass attached to the leaflet, which is the head of the ruptured patellar muscle, leads to severe eccentric MR, and LV, as you saw here, is hyperdynamic. Okay, so what is the treatment?
Surgery. Ma'am, surgical repair.
Surgery, yeah, but they may not give enough time for that. Okay, what is this?
Ischemic MR because of PML tethering.
Describe the echo findings.
Apical 4-chamber view showing dilated LA and one is 2D image and another is color Doppler image. And hello ma'am.
LV is not dilated?
LV is also dilated and the anterolateral wall is akinetic. PML is restricted.
Anterolateral, or I think this portion.
Lateral wall, ma'am. Yeah, lateral wall. Lateral wall is akinetic and there is severe MR, which is it.
Now, what happened to the mitral valve?
PML is restricted, ma'am.
The PML is standing.
Yes, ma'am.
And AML is trying to.
No cooptation. Cooptation.
But you can see every cooptation defect. Normally they overlap. There is
cooptation defect is there.
Cooptation defect, and you can see a
severe MR.
So even with a small area of infarction, you can get severe mitral regurgitation. This is a chronic ischemic MR. So here it is not because of the papillary dysfunction, it is because of remodeling. This develops during healing phase of MI. This is due to remodeling of MI. So the normal geometry of mitral apparatus becomes distorted and there is incomplete leaflet closure. So you must be familiar with this. This is the, usually it involves the which papillary? Posterior.
Posterior median.
Posterior.
So when that segment of the myocardium is akinetic or dyskinetic, so it pulls. See, normally the function of the papillary muscle in the chordae is to keep the leaflet not moving excessively into the LA. So here what happens, it is moved down, so there is tethering effect, pulling effect. So it doesn't allow the leaflet to close. This is because of outward displacement. This classically happens in inferior posterior MI, but whereas in anterior wall MI, ischemic MR is because of dilated annulus. That leads to non-cooptation feelings. So what is the treatment here?
Surgery.
What does guidelines say? When do you do it? Suppose patient is undergoing CABG, what do you do?
Mitral valve repair.
Repair or replacement?
Replacement.
I think nowadays replacement is preferred because the recurrence after repair is more common, so they prefer replacement.
Caudal sparing replacement.
No?
Neocardia and replacement, ma'am.
No, repair in ischemic MR, recurrence is more. I think this is one situation where, I don't know whether the guideline has changed recently, but it was mitral valve replacement. Arun, did you read that? MR guideline?
Yes, yes, ma'am. That replacement is preferred over repair.
Yeah.
That is caudal sparing because of its prolonged results. So repair is associated with further chance of requiring reoperation.
Yeah, undersized annular ring they used to use, but the recurrence rate was high. So now they prefer replacement. Anyway, long-term results are not that good as in others. So by the way, what classification of what is the classification of MR?
Ma'am, Carpenter's classification. In Carpenter's classification, it comes under 3B.
What is 3B? What is 1? So just for
One is normal
Ma'am, one
leaflet
is
motion.
normal leaflet mobility.
one is normal mobility. Type 2 is
Restricted opening.
2 is no.
2 is mobile.
2 is
Increased mobility.
Increased mobility. We saw in the
increased mobility.
Either due to prolapse or flail of the leaflet. I hope you all know what is prolapse and what is flail. Someone else can answer. What is prolapse? What is flail? And when do you get
Prolapse is when the coaptation, when the leaflet body projects into the LA more than 2 mm and above the coaptation line, and flail is when the tip of the tip of the mitral leaflets faces LA, doesn't face LV.
So it is freely mobile because of tear, either caudal tear or papillomedullary rupture, as we saw in the previous case. So it freely moves into the LA. There is no control. Whereas prolapse only it buckles, the body buckles. The tip is still looking at the LV. So here it is. That is type 2. 3 you have A and B. A is 3 is what? Restricted mobility. A is
Restricted mobility.
A is 3A is
restricted opening.
Yeah, restricted opening and maybe also closing. Classically seen in rheumatic heart disease. P is
restricted closure.
Closure. So the classical example is ischemic MR. Here it is not because of the papillomedullary dysfunction, and this will not improve after angioplasty or after surgery because it is because of remodeling and that area is already akinetic or dyskinetic. It will not be cured by revascularization. So suppose patient develops, as you said, what is that? Papillomedullary dysfunction during episodes of chest pain, that will improve. Here, you have to do something. If it is moderate, do you advise surgery or not? Very often surgeons keep asking us whether this mitral valve.
Severe is clearly indicated, but for moderate, controversial results are there.
Yeah, moderate.
They may not provide any mortality benefit, only reduces the hospitalization rate, I think.
So moderate. Other thing you should remember is it is dynamic. You can't decide on the OT table because they give anesthetic agents. So it depends on the preload, afterload. So you have to decide before surgery itself. So if you give afterload reducing agents, diuretics, it may come down. Okay. Next. What's happening?
LV apical thrombus, no?
Why so much time? So what is the difference between the previous one we saw, no, intramyocardial hematoma and this?
The movement of the inner layer, ma'am, that which was there in the previous intramyocardial hematoma.
But there you saw a clear cut
Yep.
there, no? There it is. You see the same patient. You see another thrombus here. So these all, and you can see a kinetic segment in there.
Apex.
This here are familiar, but I just want to tell you how often you get thrombus in MI, around 5%, and seen in the regions of akinesis or dyskinesis. Whenever clot is seen, you see whether that segment is akinetic or dyskinetic. It can also occur in dilated cardiomyopathy because of stasis and decreased mobility also. So most commonly associated with the anterior MI, but you may see in lateral and inferior regions also. It occurs between 2 to 3 days after MI. But sometimes you see on day 1 also. See this? Multiple clots attached. Again, you can see a akinetic segment there. So, if you see an echolucent center that is supposed to be new and actively growing clot. So, transthoracic echo has a high sensitivity up to 95%. See this has a echolucent, so it's supposed to be a fresh clot. And what is the incidence of systemic embolism? Around 10%. And echo features suggestive of increased risk of embolization is increased mobility, protruding clots seen in multiple views, and at the zones of akinesis and hyperkinesis. If they're at the akinesis and hyperkinesis junction, then they are more prone for embolism. So, which are the patients who are at risk for LV thrombus? Recent MI will be aneurysm, dilated cardiomyopathy, and rarely hypercoagulable states like Apla syndrome and eosinophilic endocarditis. Very classically seen in eosinophilic endocarditis. So remember, which was described in 1856. Endothelial damage, stasis, hypercoagulable state. We'll come to it later also. Which are the conditions which mimic LV thrombus? Can anybody tell?
Endomyocardial fibrosis.
Okay.
EMF.
Correct.
EMF.
Correct.
EMF.
Correct. Apical hypertrophy. Endomyocardial fibrosis. Hypereosinophilic syndrome with the eosinophilic endocarditis. And of course, non-compaction. All these can mimic, and sometimes you may need a MRI to differentiate. So this patient is an anteroval MI presented with hypertension. Not very good images, but just to complete the list. Hypertension on dopamine. Can you make out anything?
Dynamic
anterior motion.
Dynamic LVOT obstruction.
Very good.
Anterior motion.
You can see the SAM. And you can see the gradient. So what do you do in this patient?
Control the heart rate. If you are giving inotropes, you have to stop.
Patient on
You have to
dopamine.
taper and stop.
So you have to stop.
You have to taper it.
This is dynamic LVOT obstruction. It's an underdiagnosed complication of enteroval MI. It may result in shock, and if you go on giving inotropes, it worsens. So this is because of apical hypokinesia with hypercontractile basic segments causing LVOT obstruction. So after discontinuing dopamine, SAM decreased and the gradient came down. So whenever you asked mechanical complications of, it can be a theory question also, all these will be included. So what are the other causes for SAM? Acute LVOT obstruction. Where all you get acute LVOT obstruction?
Cardiomyopathy, post MV repair, then in
Dehydration.
Yeah, during dopamine stress echo you can get post mitral valve repair, AVR, aortic stenosis. They have LV hypertrophy, small LV cavity. They can develop LV obstruction post-operatively. Hypertensive patients, dehydration, hypovolemia, especially when they have LVH. So what is pseudo-SAM? And when do you get pseudo-SAM? Others can answer. Prabhavati is there. I know only few names.
Ma'am, pericardial effusion, ASD, ma'am.
Mitral valve prolapse, pericardial effusion, hypercontractile states. So here, because the LV is hypercontractile, the mitral valve moves and the maximum moment is during, it coincides with the peak posterior wall motion. Whereas true SAM occurs before that. Pseudo SAM occurs and it coincides with the peak of posterior wall movement. Okay, you can read further. Okay.
Ma'am, all these are considered as SAM or pseudo SAM, ma'am? What this post MV repair and cardiomyopathy, everything?
These are all true SAM. True SAM here. Because there is hypercontractile LVOT. Pseudo SAM occurs when the whole myocardium moves inside, like hypercontractile state it occurs in. That's what it said. Any thoughts? Anybody else? Dimpu? Who has disappeared? Got bored? Nikhil?
Ma'am, what are the causes of pseudo-SAM, ma'am?
Huh? Hello?
Causes of pseudo-SAM. Can you please tell, ma'am?
No, what I understand is it is because of the in pseudo-SAM, it's vigorous LV contraction. Or it results from vigorous LV contraction. And here the movement of the mitral valve peaks with the SAM coincides with the peak of posterior wall movement. That's what is. And classically seen in large pericardial effusion, mitral valve prolapse and hypercontractile states. It's difficult to understand. Anyway, you can read up more details. But usually ask question. Causes of SAM, what is pseudo-SAM, acute LVOT obstruction.
So hyperdynamic states can cause both SAM and pseudo-SAM, ma'am.
You can cause both, yes. How to differentiate echocardiography? What is given is this pseudo-SAM occurs, it peaks with the, it coincides with the peak of the posterior wall contractility. If you have any other points, you can tell. Whereas real SAM, true SAM occurs before the peak of the posterior wall movement. It is understandable because when the posterior wall moves in, maybe mitral valve is moving towards the septum, that is pseudo-SAM. Whereas true SAM occurs before the peak movement of the posterior wall. Is it okay? If you have any explanation, anybody else who has read about this? Shalini is there? Prabhavati? Nobody is answering. Everybody left or what?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
No, we are there, ma'am.
You're there? Then why are you silent? Dimpu is there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Ma'am, I got disconnected. I connected back.
Had a nap or what?
No, ma'am. Disconnect agide, ma'am. Matte connect.
Disconnect agidya. Seri, seri. Okay. So any
Mitral valve prolapse, basically that basal hypercontractility which is seen is only the answer which was given, ma'am, in MBP.
yeah,
And
you
which
read
is why there
more
will be
about telling ballerina effect and all that, ballerina movement.
yeah, that is the reason why they get even that configuration, ma'am. Because of the eccentric hypertrophy, in LV angiogram you get a ballerina foot deformity. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, can you just repeat,
Isn't
ma'am,
it specific for HCM,
Huh?
ma'am? Ballerina foot? Isn't
Ballerina
ballerina
is
foot
classically
specific for
described in
HOCM?
HOCM, correct?
HOCM.
But it is also Dimpu added that day that it is also seen in mitral valve prolapse. Showed a reference also. That is a mitral valve movement, right? Dimpu?
Because of the eccentric because of the excessive movement of the mitral posterior mitral valve, there will be at the junction of the postrovasal and the mid part there will be an eccentric hypertrophy, ma'am. So because of which it will look like that on LV angiogram.
Is it the LV angio looking like that or?
LV angiogram, ma'am. LV angiogram will look like a ballerina foot deformity because of the eccentric hypertrophy of the base.
But that is classically earlier days that was classically described in HOCM, correct?
That's what basically in Tajik's echo also it is given. Actually.
Yeah, we discussed that day.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's it.
Okay, we'll move on to the next. Yeah, some simple ones now. This everybody is familiar, I suppose. And very commonly asked in the exam. Very fond examiner's favorite echo image.
APVC.
Supracardiac TV.
What is that sign called?
Garland.
Garland. Garland. So, yeah. What forms is garland?
Left innominate vein, vertical vein, and then the
Vertical vein same as LSVC?
No, different.
No, though that you should understand. Vertical vein is not LSVC. Okay. Vertical vein, innominate vein, and SVC, which are highlighted, and you see it. This is what? There you can see the flow towards
pulmonary
and then
aorta. The middle one is aorta, below that is pulmonary artery.
Yeah, aorta. These are some simple classical echoes which they keep. You need more views, but with this.
ASD with MVP, ma'am.
Wait. Yeah.
Tricuspid atresia.
Tricuspid atresia.
You see here, no, you can see a ridge. You need a better view, but there is tricuspid atresia, large base V. See, when you're saying you say apical port chamber view, you can see it. What type of base is this?
Primum.
Primum AST, large non-restricted AST. And can see a small cavity here, the RV cavity. How does the RV get the blood here? Is it like this?
VSD.
PSD.
Through VST.
Here, if you tilt a bit, you'll see the VSD here. Maybe the color for it should be able to demonstrate it. Yes. So this is a hypoplastic right ventricle. And the size of the right ventricle depends on the size of the ventricular separator. What is this structure?
Coronary sinus.
Descending aorta.
Descending thoracic.
Descending aorta.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll be asked like this suddenly.
Descending. Okay. Descending aorta.
Next.
Epstein anomaly. Apical 4 chamber.
So can you describe the 2D findings of Epstein's? Can you describe?
Septal leaflet displaced apically.
How much?
More than 8 millimeter per meter square or more than 15 mm. Then there is dilated RA.
What happens to the anterior leaflet?
Anterior leaflet becomes sail-like with excess mobility.
Sometimes there may be tethering, as you can see. There is some tethering there. What is the embryology of Epstein's anomaly?
Failure of
Delamination.
Failure of delamination.
Failure of delamination. So what is the current surgery for this?
cones.
Dance and stance approach.
Yeah, they do delamination. What is 1.5 ventricle repair? 1.5 ventricle repair? You all know it.
Bidirectional gland in
Pulsate.
association with ICR.
Sometimes, if the functional RV is very small, they may have to do a bidirectional blend. So that is called 1.5 ventricle repair. Where else you do this? 1.5 ventricle repair.
Pulmonary atresia with intact ventricles.
We see some cases of isolated hyperplasia of the tricuspid valve with a small RV. So, the ASD shunting right to left. 3-4 cases were operated. Close the ASD and put a bidirectional. Yeah. So, these are all familiar, but
Saline bubble.
saline contrast. What has happened? You might have done
The
many
filling is seen at.
postings, huh?
The filling is appearing immediately at the level of atrium.
Is it coming immediately?
Around 5 cardiac
after
cycles.
After 3 cycles.
After at least 3 cycles, it's coming. So, how is the intensity?
PFO.
1, 2, 3. Now it starts coming. So, where is it coming from? Can you make out anything? Maybe you need a better view.
Pulmonary AV fistula.
Yeah, it is pulmonary AV fistula. So, it comes 3 to 5 beats after. First, it has to traverse through the right heart, pulmonary artery, then go to pulmonary vein, then come to the left atrium. So, it takes 3 to 5 beats to reach the left atrium. So, with the TE, you can image from which pulmonary vein is coming. That will be more specific. And the width and density of the bubbles are graded. Grade 1 is less than 6 bubbles. Grade 2 is more than 20, but no complete opacification. Grade 3 is complete and intense opacification. What do you think here? It's not grade 1. Is it grade 2 or 3? It looks like grade 3, right? It's quite intense. Yeah. So it's difficult to make out from where it is coming.
Ma'am, one question, ma'am.
Huh.
Ma'am, how to differentiate from PF? Because PF also we say within 5 cardiac cycles, and for pulmonary AV fistula.
You see 5 cardiac cycles. Why? No, it comes immediately.
3 to 5 cardiac cycles, that also is mentioned, ma'am, for PF also. So in AVM, how to differentiate?
No, PF, come on. You all agree with that?
PFO is within 3 cardiac cycles.
Where is no, the sniff?
PFO is within 3 cardiac cycles.
Huh?
PFO is within 3 cardiac cycles.
Yeah.
PFO will come only with Valsalva. Otherwise,
From right atrium to left atrium. Why will it take 3 cardiac cycles? Cannot. This is one of the differentiating feature. And PFO
with Valsalva.
I have to do Valsalva. It's not that easy to get such intense on the bubbles. This is classical explanation. No? AV fistula takes 3 to 5 cycles. That is you to differentiate it from direct shunting from right to left.
Okay.
Okay, shall we go on? You all know how to do contrast echo, right? Today I think there is a talk on that, double contrast echo.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Any takers? This is very classical every day. You might be seeing the echo lab.
Sam with them.
Complete diagnosis. You are right, but you tell very
HOCM, hypertrophic.
and leave it. So there is a marked hypertrophy of the intraventricular septum. Then SAM. Then you can see the turbulence in the LVOT. Then what is this? Eccentric.
MR. Eccentric jet MR.
Eccentric posterior posterolateral. So is it this MR because of OCM itself, SAM itself, or it is primary mitral problem? Primary mitral abnormality.
Since it is eccentrically directed, probably it is due to SAM intrinsic.
It is due to SAM itself. If you have a central or anterior jet, then you suspect mitral valve abnormality. Is it clear? The SAM related MR goes posterolaterally, whereas if there is a primary abnormality of the mitral leaflets like prolapse or tear, then you may get a central jet or anterior jet. So, any name for this sign?
Ma'am?
Any name? We discussed in the last class.
Siegel sign.
So, that's what is happening. High eject, obstruct, leak. So first there will be high velocity, early systolic ejection. Then there will be dynamic obstruction. Then mid to late systolic MR. So that is called eject, obstruct, leak. And severity of MR is related to the severity of SAM. So LVOT turbulence going towards the aorta, eccentric MR going towards the posterior wall, looks like two wings of the seagull. It's called seagull sign. So can you see here? It is going like this and this is coming posteriorly. So this is called seagull sign. So seagull in light, flying wings. Where else you get seagull sign? That is an angiogram.
In top with pulmonary atresia.
At top with atresia, when the pulmonary artery with the branches gets pacified by the ductus or collateral, it looks like a flying seagull. Okay. So we move on.
Yes, ma'am.
What is this structure and what do you find?
IVC and hepatic vein.
Very good. What's happening?
There is diastolic flow reversal, ma'am.
It is CCP. Suppose you don't see this upper portion, see only the lower portion. So what do you think? Anyway, you can make out that this. Is it pulsatile? See there?
There is flow reversal.
Variation. It is pulsating with each cycle. It's looking like aortic pulsation, right? So it is. When do you get this kind of systolic pulsations in the IVC?
TR, severe TR.
Yes, it's a finding in severe TR. So what will be, if you put a Doppler in the hepatic vein, what will you get?
Flow reversal.
Reversal of S wave, ma'am.
Correct. So this is a pulsatile IVC due to severe tricuspid regurgitation and a Doppler in the hepatic vein showing which one is this? Here, below or above? Should be?
Above one.
Ma'am, above one is reversal.
Yeah. So above this is the systolic flow reversal. So this is of severe tricuspid regurgitation. Can you enumerate all the findings of severe tricuspid regurgitation? Second.
Normally also the flow will be above.
What is the TR due to here? You see something on the left side. What's happening?
Slow moment.
Severe MS.
So what are the findings of severe TR? What are the usually you know about aortic and mitral valve is a neglected valve. So how do you assess severity of TR? Somebody can list.
Ma'am, grading massive.
No, you
then,
no, after that is later. First you tell what are the features of severe TR. So first we look at the
vena contracta more than 7 mm.
Dilated right-sided chambers, RA, RE, and IVC will be dilated. And as you see here, there will be the leaflets or non-coopting. Abnormal leaflets, we don't have it to be isolated. Okay. Then color jet area occupying more than 40% of the right atrial area. And if you take a continuous wave Doppler, it will be dense, triangular dense. Then the E wave velocity, as in mitral we take mitral more than 1.5 we say, here it is more than 1 meter per second. And vena contracta 7 millimeter or more, extrapolated from MR. P's are radius more than 9 millimeter and flow reversible in hepatic veins. So these are the features of severe tricuspid regurgitation. But somebody said there is something beyond that. No. What is the recent expansion of TR grading? What? Somebody is telling, no? What was that?
Yes, ma'am. Severe TR, then massive TR, and then torrential TR.
Which comes first, massive or torrential?
Massive
7
first.
to 14 and more than 14.
So recent expansion includes two more grades above the severe. Severe is between 7 millimeter to 13 millimeter. Massive is in a contractor between 14 to 20 millimeter. They also include resistant volume and all, which is difficult to estimate. Maybe MRI can help in that. In the torrential is vena contracta more than 20 millimeter. So 14 to 20 millimeter and more than 20 millimeter included as massive and torrential TR. This is to better characterize severity of TR currently treated with various transcatheter devices. So this is by Rebecca. It's appeared in European Heart Journal 2017. Okay. So they talk about this massive and torrential. We are very conservative about TR. So when do you do TR surgery for tricuspid regurgitation? Indications?
Indications. Ma'am, if there is a RV dysfunction, then if the annulus is dilated more than 21 mm per meter square, then in the patient with severe TR.
One is severe TR. If you are going in for mitral valve surgery, definitely you have got to address the tricuspid valve. Then even if it is mild or moderate TR with the annular dilatation, 21 millimeter per meter square, that is an indication for repair. So you read about various types of repairs. Okay. What is this?
Ma'am, small doubt, ma'am.
Huh?
Ma'am, a small doubt, ma'am. Ma'am, in the previous slide, hepatic vein flow reversal without ECG gating, how can we say if it is systolic or diastolic, ma'am?
Gating is not there.
Oh, previous one.
Huh?
Previous one.
This
Previous
one?
to this.
Oh,
Previous
that
one, ma'am. Previous to this.
gating is actually the yeah.
Okay.
Are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This cannot be respiratory, right? Unless patient has tachypnea.
Yes, ma'am.
So this may be some kind of massive or torrential TR. Okay, shall we go on?
Ma'am, one doubt, ma'am.
Huh?
This TR vena contracta, ma'am.
TR vena contracta?
Yeah, ma'am. This massive and torrential, the differentials what they've given, ma'am. If we have to take the vena contracta average in two views or in the single view, ma'am?
Vena contracta, how do you assess? Similar. Take the widest one. So here you can assess. If you freeze it somewhere. Yeah, from here to here. It's more than 20 again. So here it is 20.
Oh, okay.
We have other, you know how to take vena contracta, no? We have to have a
narrowest portion and a zoom view.
zoom view.
Yes.
Okay, you can take multiple and take average. Okay. Means you are familiar again. What is this?
IVC plethora, dilated IVC with water jam sign, traffic jam sign.
Yeah, dilated, non-collapsing IVC. There is no collapse at all, with traffic jam sign. What is the normal IVC? During inspiration, up to 14 millimeter. During expiration, during expiration between 15 to 20 millimeter. Normal collapse is more than 50%. So IVC plethora. What is IVC plethora? Non-breathing IVC. That means there is no collapse during inspiration. It indicates high RA pressure and overfilled, less compliant venous system. Traffic jam sign is multiple echogenic shadows seen moving to and fro in the hepatic veins and IVC. So when do you get classically, where is it displayed? Traffic jam sign?
Ma'am, traffic jam sign in right ventricular failure.
No, classically it is in constrictive pericarditis. It can be seen whenever there is high right atrial pressure, but classically it is described in constrictive pericarditis.
Ma'am, both, what is the difference between the two, ma'am?
Huh?
What is the difference between the two, IVC plethora and traffic jam?
Plethora means it is not decreasing in respiration. Dilated, that's what I said here. Lack of normal collapse. It's a dilated IVC and no inspiratory decrease. That is plethora. Traffic jam is what we saw. Multiple echogenic shadows in the hepatic veins. So here, so dilated, non-collapsing IVC is plethora. So this small movement in that, it looks like a clot. It's very sluggish movement. That is traffic jam. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. You should tell what it is. It's a 52-year-old female who came with right heart failure. Take your time and read.
Ma'am, it's a dial.
What is this view? See, when you're asked, go systematic.
Parastellar short axis view.
Parasternal?
Long
axis.
Long axis.
View with
CS dilatation.
It's written there, unfortunately. So, what is this? Cystic mass.
okay, hugely dilated.
Don't jump here to give the differential diagnosis. What all can come in this region?
It can be a post-basal aneurysm.
Yeah.
Can be there in that location.
Yeah, it can be aneurysm in this region. Submitral aneurysms.
Submitral aneurysm. And it could be loculated pericardial effusion also can be there. Because we're not seeing any flow into it.
Is it LA appendage diverticulum or
So how do you differentiate the usual question? How do you differentiate whether it's aorta or inside the pericardium? What is this?
Doppler.
That is descending thoracic.
Ma'am, that is coronary sinus.
Descending thoracic aorta. If you don't see descending thoracic aorta, what do you suspect?
Pericardial effusion.
Huh?
If the
don't see
thoracic aorta is not seen,
Right aortic arch.
Right aortic arch.
It's right aortic. Ma'am, what is that larger one, ma'am?
Huh?
Larger adjacent to that one more is there, ma'am.
This must be
that
the
is coronary sinus, sir.
This one? This is the interest.
No, right side, right. That one, ma'am. That one.
This one is behind the LA, no? So that is not.
Okay, that is opening into LA.
Yeah, it's behind the LA. Maybe we have to see in other images. Okay, so you should know the differential diagnosis at this stage. Okay. Now you see.
Madam, is this right aortic arch is there, madam, in this case?
No, this is not right aortic arch. You are seeing the higher arch. You are seeing the descending thoracic artery. It's a normal. So it tells you that it's a normal left aortic arch.
If it is not there, we have to suspect right side.
It is our favorite question of our director.
That is not coronary sinus, madam.
No, that is not coronary sinus. That is behind, no? This is the aorta. So we are talking about this structure.
Okay.
Differential diagnosis could be dilated coronary sinus, or sometimes submitted aneurysm, or LV aneurysm. Okay, and the pericardial cyst come there.
And that last circle, what is that, madam? Behind the left atrium?
This one, this may be artifact you have to see in other views.
Okay.
Sometimes dilated pulmonary artery comes. So what is this now? So it is here, bulging here. You don't go by whatever written there because sometimes wrongly written. You have to interpret yourself. To read this, is it coronary sinus now? What's happening? So there is some MR, severe TR, IS is bulging towards the LA, right? RA dilated. Okay. Now this will give you the answer. What is this? You are right. Dilated coronary sinus. You can see it draining into the right atrium, opening into the right atrium.
Ma'am, that entire thing is coronary sinus.
This whole is right atrium, coronary sinus. Coronary sinus. Maybe some 4 centimeter or so. So what are the causes for dilated coronary sinus? What are the causes for dilated coronary sinus?
LSVC, unprovoked.
Severe TR, PH.
Yeah. LSVC, persistent LSVC. The most common is LSVC to coronary.